we're going to go ahead and get started here. I know we've got a few more just hopping in. So to kick things off, before we do introductions, we're going to do a quick poll just to learn about how you're getting involved with Girls on the Run, or you think you might be getting involved with Girls on the Run this season. So you should see the poll up on your screen now, asking if you are considering becoming a coach, site liaison, maybe a different type of volunteer, or you're here to observe from another Girls on the Run council, because we've got a lot of our friends from other councils wanting to see what we're doing this season. So I'll give you just a few more seconds here. It looks like we've got about 15 or 16 people joining, which is great. All right. This is fun. According to my screen, you are viewing the poll results, but I'm not. Heather, can you read those to me?
It looks like there are about 6 people who are potentially coaches, 3 who are potentially site liaisons, 3 who are other/general/not sure, and 6 are other Girls on the Run councils.
Thank you. I have yet to figure out how to view the poll results myself, so that's fun. Let me close out of that. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here. My name is Erin Schulte. I'm the Mission Advancement Coordinator for the Girls on the Run Philadelphia Council. I'm also your tech support and Q&A moderator this evening. So if you have any questions or concerns regarding the audio or visual, feel free to send a chat message. Just change the to from to GOTR Q&A in tech, and I'm happy to assist you with that. If you have a question regarding the content that we're going through here this evening, send that message to everyone so that everyone can see the message that's being sent and benefit from the answer. So when I'm not answering Q&A questions on virtual open houses, I coordinate our social media platforms and campaigns. I look after our Soulmates peer-to-peer fundraising program, our program evaluation, site visits, and a host of other things. And in the other part of my life, I work in learning and development. So I'm very passionate about developing people in whatever way they need, whether it be in a corporate setting or volunteers or the girls in our program. And this year marks 1 year with Girls on the Run Philadelphia and 10 years with Girls on the Run in total. So I've been a coach and volunteer in a few other councils and found myself here with an opportunity to contribute to this council and this team. So super excited to hear Colleen and Heather give you the scoop on the program for this fall and help answer some questions as well.
Great, thank you, Erin. My name is Colleen Howard, and I am the Executive Director for our Girls on the Run Philly Council. I have been in my role for the past 6 years, and I actually came to Girls on the Run through coaching. I have 3 girls, and when my oldest daughter was a 3rd grader, she wanted to participate in the program. So we started a team at her school, and I fell in love with it. And shortly after that, I became the 2nd executive director for our council. So all 3 of my daughters have done the program. And I have been lucky to have the perspective of a parent and a coach and a staff person. So we're really grateful to all of you for taking time tonight to learn about what our fall season is going to look like. And we are excited to share our plans with all of you. So I'll turn it over to Heather.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Plasteris, and I am the program coordinator. I have been in this role since last September. Previous to that, I similarly had been a parent of a GOTR participant, and eventually I was able to coach, which was awesome. And then that rolled into actually working with Colleen and Erin, which has been awesome. So I'm really, really excited to see you all here for our first ever virtual open house. So welcome. Next slide. All right, so just as a sort of a very broad overview for tonight, well, our goal is to give you a broad overview, right? So kind of generally, what are we thinking? What are we looking at for the fall? There will probably be some outstanding questions, such as like, what are the PPE requirements going to be in the fall? What's the snack policy going to be precisely? And those are things that we don't have a specific answer to right at this moment. I'll talk a little bit more about coach training further in tonight's presentation, but presumably by that time, later in August/early September, we will have more specific answers to a lot of those other types of questions. All right, so tonight we're going to talk generally about what is Girls on the Run and our mission, and then broken it up tonight into topics of interest to potential sites, and then topics of interest to potential coaches. Obviously, there's some overlap, but and just kind of giving you a sense of what we're looking at as a timeline for the program as well as the fall season. And we will hope to leave plenty of time to answer all of your questions at the end. All right, so I know that a number of you here are very familiar with Girls on the Run, and you know all about this, but there are also a number of people here tonight who are totally new to our organization. So we wanted to give you just a little bit of context as some historical backstory. The National Girls on the Run organization was founded in 1996 in North Carolina by a woman named Molly Barker. And our Philadelphia Council actually started in 2013. So this fall will be our 16th season, which is very exciting. So our mission at Girls on the Run, and why we've been doing this for almost 16 seasons, is to inspire girls to be joyful, healthy, and confident. And we do that by using a fun and experience-based curriculum, which kind of creatively integrates running into the lessons. Next. So we are categorized as a physical activity-based positive youth development program. So the things that we are hoping to cultivate and grow in all of our participants are these aspects listed down here at the bottom that we call the 5 C's. So the first one being competence, trying to provide experiences that help girls really build skills that are going to help them make meaningful contributions out in their communities. Confidence, and building girls' self-worth and recognizing their own personal strengths and those of others. Character, learning to choose positive actions that demonstrate respect toward themselves and toward others. Care, by that we mean responding to themselves and others with care and compassion and the capacity to use empathy. And then connections, which is focused on building cooperative skills and team building to bring the girls together as a cohesive team. And so basically the Girls on the Run curriculum is really built on social emotional learning. And I want to give you a little bit of a sense for those of you who haven't experienced a Girls on the Run season before. Typically, the girls meet up at a particular time twice a week with somewhere 2, 3, maybe even 4 coaches. And they practice together for 90 minutes twice a week. In a typical season, that goes on for 20 lessons across 10 weeks. And those lessons can encompass a whole lot of different themes, but each lesson has a theme. So it might be self-talk, it might be resolving conflict, it might be empathy. One thing that seemed important to point out, especially now, is one of our focuses is really supporting girls to be able to both identify and process their emotions. So to me, that feels like one of the more important ones going into the fall season after everything that all of us have been through the last many, many months. So essentially at each practice, there is a flow that is structured in the same way each time. There are a number of activities that involve getting the girls moving, and each of those activities is set up within the context of whatever the theme of that lesson is. So if it's identifying and processing emotions, they might play games where they're naming emotions while they run around or do some other kind of game. There's all types of cooperative games that they play in order to build confidence in themselves and cohesiveness as a team. And then at many points throughout the lesson, there are processing opportunities where the coaches sort of try to bring out thoughts and feelings from the girls that came up through the activities relevant to the theme of the day. So next, I will pass it back over to Colleen to talk a little bit about sites.
Thanks, Heather. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the roles and responsibilities of Girls on the Run sites. So first, we ask that each site provide a site liaison, and I am going to get into the details of that volunteer role on the next slide. But typically that is a staff person at the school. So sometimes it's a guidance counselor, often it's a teacher, and I would say occasionally it's a parent. Second, submit a site application. So we have an application process. It's very simple. Really, the information we're trying to collect is information about what days you would like to host practice at your school. So the girls meet twice a week. Typically this weekend it may look, or this weekend, sorry, this season it might look a little bit different in that aspect, but we ask for your preferred practice days and times in the site application. We ask a little bit about the composition of your school. So it's helpful for us to know if you have a really large number of 3rd through 8th grade girls, or if you're at a smaller school where you might want to combine teams with a nearby school to form a sizable team. So we'll be asking that both new sites and returning sites complete those site applications, and then we follow up, and that is what will prompt Heather to send your site the flyers that we use to promote the program and any additional information you might need to get started. So next, part of the application process is letting us know that you've identified a safe outdoor space to practice. So for those of you that are new sites considering signing up for the program, you're probably thinking, where are we going to practice? Because we're in the city. So we have a lot of schools that are in really urban settings. You know, in Northeast and Northwest Philadelphia, there's a little bit more space. But I would say, generally speaking, a lot of our sites really are working with a limited, very small schoolyard or a small blacktop area, or some area that's really close or adjacent to the school. The main thing is it needs to be the type of space that will allow the coaches to see the girls at all times. Next, we, on a typical season, we ask that the site identifies a safe indoor space, and the reason for that is so we don't need to cancel practice. The reason we have a note in there that says fall 2020 modification is because this season, since we don't know if after school organizations will be able to meet inside the buildings, we will have an option for the practice to take place on a virtual platform, since we will have a parallel virtual lesson that the girls can flow in and out of throughout the season. So that will be an option. The one thing that will need to be considered and discussed with the site liaison is how that impacts childcare. So if there are families that count on Girls on the Run as childcare, we'll need to figure out with you what will happen if there's bad weather and the girls need to be inside. Next, securing a space to store the coach bag and materials. So that coach bag is a duffel bag, and then we give you all a bag with the water bottles at the beginning of the season. So it doesn't need to be a large space, but it does need to be dedicated and able to be locked or secured so that no one gets into the materials for the program. And then finally, we ask our sites propose 2 to 3 volunteer coaches. The first couple of seasons, we did not do this. And what we found is that the most successful sites are those where we have a few coaches that have been identified. We do have some volunteer coaches that come from the community that will be assigned to sites if they are in a specific geographic area. For example, the Center City schools, we typically have a few coaches that work downtown and are able to leave work a little bit early and can volunteer at some of those sites or sites in University City. But it is really helpful for us if the site can help us identify 2 or 3 volunteers to support the program. So the site liaison role and responsibility, this person is really integral to making the program a success from the start. So in addition to being the person that usually submits the site application and that confirms with the principal that the site is allowed to have the program, this is also the person that helps us publicize the program. So we have a 3rd through 5th grade curriculum called Girls on the Run, and then 6th through 8th grade is called Heart and Soul. They both meet the same number of days with the same frequency, and some sites host one or the other, and then we occasionally do have sites that will host both programs. So we ask that the site liaison help us by handing out flyers, posting it in the class dojo. That's the platform that I know the public schools use here to communicate with families, or that you hang up flyers in your school. Now, presumably this fall, parents won't be in the schools as much, so probably handing out take-home flyers is going to be the most effective way to promote the program. Next, the site liaisons are responsible for collecting registration forms and fees. Now, we encourage sites to conduct all of their registration online. And now that we know that the families in the school district do have Chromebooks that are assigned to their children, this might be a better option for them this season in particular. But we also know that there are a lot of schools and sites and families that still really rely on paper and completing paper forms. So we do allow paper registration. We have registration forms that are in English and Spanish so that we can accommodate all of the families. And then on the occasion that we have families that speak a different language, typically we have a liaison at the site. So for example, at McCall, I know our site liaison works with a Chinese translator to assist the families in completing the forms. So in that case, you would also be responsible for collecting any registration fees, such as cash or checks that would come in, and then getting those to our office via mail or some other, a lot of coaches choose to drop it off. Next, we ask that you gather the coaches and you conduct a preseason coach meeting. Preferably this happens on site. So you all would meet for a half hour to an hour at your school or community center, and the site liaison would show the coaches around, show the coaches where they should enter and exit the building, where the restrooms are, where the girls will be getting changed, where to store the coach materials, where the AED is, and any other important information that they are going to need during the course of their practices. We also want the site liaison to communicate the site protocols to any outside coaches. So like I said, we occasionally have community volunteers that come into the schools, and we really rely on the site liaisons to communicate any information such as you're not allowed to use the lunchroom at all because there's tutoring going on in there at this time, or if you all go outside, you need to make sure that one of you has the key because the door will lock behind you, or anything else that's really important like that specific to the site. The site liaison also, their overarching role is to serve as the point of contact between Girls on the Run, the site, and the families and the coaches throughout the season. So just to touch on registration in a little bit more depth, promoting the program early is the key to success. So once we receive a site application and provide the flyers and provide any other information you all need to get going, we really encourage you to get started right away. This season we know might look a little bit different, and we are going to have some more flexibility. Typically, we're working with a really tight schedule in the fall because we're up against a 5K that takes place the first weekend in December at the Navy Yard. Since we anticipate doing site-based 5Ks this season, the sites will have a little bit more flexibility with starting a little bit later. We really aim for mid-September for the fall, the start to the fall season. We know that this season it might end up looking more like early October. One option for you would be at your site to host sign-up days. So you could invite families to come for a 2-hour period on a certain day to come there to sign up in person, either with paper registration forms or online. And if you decide to do that, just let us know and we can see if we can help recruit any additional volunteers to help you with that. As I mentioned, there is a registration fee. So our base registration fee is $175, and then we offer a sliding scale of scholarships. That being said, the majority of the girls in Philadelphia pay the minimum fee, which is $10 per girl. So we never turn a girl or a family or a site away for financial reasons. I think that's probably something that all three of us are really, and I know our board is really passionate about. So do not be scared off by the registration fee. We work with sites and families all the time to make sure that they are able to access the program. And the only reason really that there is even a $10 fee is because we have found that it really encourages attendance and it keeps the girls engaged if the family feels like they have an investment in the program. So if you are at a site where all of the girls qualify to pay $10, and as a site or as a group of coaches, you feel strongly that you don't even want them to have to pay that, we have had sites or coaching, well, we have had sites use some of their home and school association money towards it. Sometimes the principal wants to use some of the school funds to cover the $10 per girl. And then sometimes the coaches will set up a fundraising page. So they'll put a picture of their team up, they'll write a paragraph about why they coach girls on the run and share it out. And typically they raise the $10 times however many girls in about a day or two. So we really are willing to work with the site and the coaches and whatever works best for your families so the girls can participate in the program. This season, we are adding a technology question to the registration form in anticipation of maybe needing to use the virtual platforms. So we know that in the spring when we transitioned to virtual programming, it was a challenge for some of our families because of technology issues. So we are asking the question in the registration process if the family has technology needs. Like I said, most of the families or all of the families should have and do have access to Chromebooks. It seems now that the concern is Wi-Fi. So we are fortunate to have a board member who works for the school district. And once we identify which girls need any additional assistance with Wi-Fi, we are able to work through the principal and reach out to the specific school where the girl attends to try to get her set up with Wi-Fi so she won't miss out on any practices should we need to go virtual. So I'm going to get into a little bit more detail about specifics for this fall, just because it looks a little bit different than most of our seasons for sure. So Erin, I don't know if you want me to pause. Are there a number of questions?
Hey, no, actually, Margot asked a question about the scholarship application, and I explained that it's now built into the registration form, so it's a lot easier. That was the only question so far.
Great. Okay, so for those of you who are returning coaches and sites, you are used to a 20 lesson season. This season, we are going to have a 16 lesson season for a couple of reasons. First, it may allow us to get all of the practices in person before any school closures happen later in the fall. Second, because Girls on the Run International has been really busy developing a virtual curriculum to go alongside both an in-person version of the Girls on the Run and Heart and Soul curriculum. It made sense to condense it to a 16 lesson season. So it will be 16 lessons and 8 weeks if you follow the 2 practice per week format as in seasons past. So the lessons are designed to be delivered in person or virtually. Heather is going to cover this in a little bit more detail, so I won't belabor it here, but the idea is that we want to create continuity. In the spring, we had to pivot very rapidly, and we did have some families and sites that were able to hang on and keep participating, but we know now that we're prepared and we've had time to plan, and so we do plan to execute the season, whether it be entirely virtually, a hybrid, or entirely in person. We're also in that same vein asking that sites and coaches that register for the fall season commit to transitioning to virtual lessons if needed. So even if the outlook is very optimistic and science does not indicate that we're going to close before December, we know that that could change any minute. So we really want to make sure that we don't have any teams sort of left hanging should schools close at any point. So all of the sites and coaches will need to commit to transitioning to virtual should need be. Like I mentioned, there will be some flexibility with the site start date. As we go through the different scenarios, as Heather goes through the different scenarios, we can talk about that a little bit. The one thing that does kind of dictate a certain closure date for registrations is that we will be ordering shirts for the girls this season. So at some point we will need to cut off registration. I anticipate that would be in early October. We will have some flexibility. So if you want to jam your season into 4 days a week, you might be at a school where the families just, if they're going to have any kind of after school programming, are really needing those 4 days a week. And if the school district guidelines allow for that, then that will be fine with us too. That would allow you to complete the season in 4 weeks. So that really might be another way that you can get all of the practices in person if there's a threat that schools are going to close later in the fall. And then finally, the 5K is really the best day ever, and we always look forward to it. But realistically, we know that gathering with 1,500 people at the Navy Yard is probably not going to happen this December. So, and so that we can set everyone's expectations from the start, we are planning on site-based 5Ks. So the medals, the happy hair, which is the colored hairspray that the girls like dyeing their hair with, and all of the awesome fun things that you would need to put on a 5K at your site will be handed out to the sites at some point during the season so that you can do your 5K on site to celebrate the end of the program with the girls. So just to highlight the modifications between the traditional season and what the fall season are going to look like. As I mentioned, if the weather is bad, you can transition to virtual for that day rather than going inside or rather than canceling altogether. Second, the girls will have a journal. So the idea of having a hard copy thing, like element of the program that the girls can take in and out of in-person or virtual practice is just to kind of create that sense of continuity so that, you know, I think everyone's a little bit worried that when the girls go virtual, are they still going to be engaged? So the idea with the journal is that they will stay engaged and it will sort of help facilitate that. We also will have to have smaller team sizes. So if you're a returning site or coach and you're at a site that has 20 girl teams plus girls on the waiting list, this is something to start thinking about, and hopefully we can recruit some additional coaches so that we could do a Monday, Wednesday team and a Tuesday, Thursday team, or whatever that might look, more likely a Monday, Tuesday team and a Thursday, Friday team, if that's what that will look like. The sub-coach policy has also changed a little bit in the past. If we've needed a substitute coach for any reason, we have had to find a substitute coach who's gone through coach training. With Girls on the Run this season, there will be an exception made. There always need to be at least two coaches two adults at a practice. One always needs to be a Girls on the Run trained coach, and the coaching team needs to all have gone through Girls on the Run training. That being said, if you're in a situation where you are down a coach and you need a substitute and you can't find a substitute coach that has gone through Girls on the Run training, we are allowing an adult that has their background checks on file with us to be that substitute coach on that day. We'll also be making all of the coaches and sites aware of the CDC requirements, and then we are going to defer to the sites if they have COVID protocols or that are in place that are more strict than the Girls on the Run protocols. Then the site protocols will need to be followed as well. And then finally, the end of season event, like I said, is going to be site-based. If for some reason at that point in the season, late November, early December, all of the children are home from school sort of for good for a month or two, we will be doing a virtual 5K again this season, and with the option for the girls to use an activity card if they're unable to go out in their neighborhood to run a 5K. So this is just a side-by-side to kind of show you what's different and what's the same. So I see my little icon didn't transfer, but the items that are bullet pointed here, the two top items under each category are the two things that have changed that are different between in-person and virtual. So you'll see that the time, the duration of the actual practice is less if the girls are using the virtual platform. And then just that the girls will either be practicing before, during, or after school in person, or they'll be using Google Classroom or Zoom or some other secure platform if it goes virtual. Otherwise, the number of lessons, the duration, the frequency of the practices in a week, the guidelines around the coaches, the journals, and the end of season celebrations are all the same, whether they're in person or virtual. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Heather to go over the program timeline, but I'll pause in case Erin has any questions queued up.
Nope, no questions.
All right.
Okay. All right, so we're going to take a look at first we're going to do some important dates for the fall season, and kind of in the theme of flexibility. This is not anything that is really set in stone at this point. There may be some things that shift around in here, but this is our goal for kind of the general timeline from here through December. So we'd hope to open program registration to families in mid to late July, somewhere around the week of the 20th. And then by the end of July, we'd like to have as much of an idea as possible which sites are going to be offering the program in the fall. I'll talk a little bit more about coach training in a minute, but coach training is going to be a series of online modules this year. So for any new coaches, it's going to be something that you can do on your own time, basically throughout the month of August. And then in late August, possibly early September, we're going to be doing a live Zoom coach training follow-up with everyone, excuse me, with all the new coaches and our staff to kind of give you the specifics to what's happening in Philadelphia. The online modules are going to be for, all Girls on the Run in the country. We are aiming to start during the week of September 14th, but again, as Colleen said, there's a lot of flexibility in that. And as she mentioned, because we want to be able to order shirts, we're going to try and close program registration to the families in early October. And then somewhere in November / very early December, the 5K celebration, in whatever form or fashion it happens, will take place. So next, here we have kind of the visuals of what different scenarios might look like. So in this first picture, so each block represents a week, and then the numbers in there represent the lesson of the Girls on the Run curriculum. So the very bright pink is when teams can meet in person, and the teal color is when virtual programming is necessary. So the in-person, in this scenario, schools open up, the first couple of weeks are in person, and then something comes up or there's an interruption for a couple of weeks and lessons switch to the virtual platform. And in this scenario, there is a reopening, and in-person programming can resume. So there's several more weeks of in-person delivery that ends with the site-based small team in-person 5K. So just to maybe explain a little bit more about the difference between the existing curriculum books, all of the returning folks know the spiral bound lesson book that tells you every lesson, every activity, what you're going to do, what you're going to say, the whole thing. There will be what we're calling sort of mirrored virtual lessons. They will be obviously much shorter, since the time is about half as long as an in-person lesson, but there will be virtual lessons just as there are for the in-person lessons. So for anyone who has coached before, it's not that you would be switching to a virtual platform and you just have to make it up. There will be a very structured virtual lesson plan that go for all 16 lessons that go along with the same lessons that you would be doing in person. So in this scenario, the first half of the season starts in mid-September, goes for a month, and that's allowed to be in person, but then the schools basically close down. There's a transition to virtual programming for the second half of the season, and then the 5K takes place in November, and it's a virtual 5K, much as it was this past spring. And when we say 5K, that doesn't mean necessarily, especially in this situation, it doesn't necessarily mean running. It could be doing other types of activities, which is why here it lists activity cards. I think Girls on the Run did a nice job of offering a lot of alternatives for kids who don't have the capacity to go outside and run 5K in their neighborhood. All right, so in this case, this is, everything is available to do in person, and the frequency is increased pretty significantly. So here you see 4 practices a week over the course of 4 weeks. And again, that would end in the site-based in-person 5K. So the scenario where you're doing 2 lessons a week, you could do 3 lessons a week or 4 lessons a week. And that would allow you to end sooner or slightly later, depending on what your site needs. And in the situation that you were to start later, starting in October is still appropriate. Even with the 16 lessons, that would put everything completed by early December. And then the next one is that everything is able to take place in person, and then you have a site-based 5K, and it's basically just that your season is slightly shortened and you're doing a more team-focused 5K experience. And here you have, it's all virtual. So in this case, the team is formed and does all of their lessons in a virtual space, and the 5K is also done virtually. All right, so a little bit more about coaching and what requirements are necessary. So this is a little bit of a deeper dive into what coach training will look like this fall. As I mentioned, there will be several modules that will be online. So you can see on the left side here where it says new coach curriculum. There it says NCT, which means National Coach Training. And there will be a number of online modules that you will work through on at your own pace. In addition to that, there will be some so those training modules are going to be kind of more generally about Girls on the Run and who we are and what our goals are and what coaching means. The ones in orange are much more specific. So there will be a training module about COVID impact and facilitating in a virtual space. So there will be a lot of augmentation of trauma training, understanding trauma and how that manifests, as well as a diversity, equity, inclusion module. Those are all going to go out to, sorry, not the basic new coach training, but the orange current COVID impact, the virtual facilitation, and the other things that I mentioned are all going to be sent out to returning coaches as well that will be specific to the fall season. And then, as I said earlier, we're also going to be doing a live Zoom sort of council specific information where hopefully we can answer a lot of your questions about coaching and maybe more specifics than we would be able to answer tonight. All right. So in order to coach with Girls on the Run, especially in Pennsylvania, the state mandates these top 3 background checks. There's a Pennsylvania criminal background check, a child abuse clearance, and if you have not lived in Pennsylvania for at least 10 years, you also have to get FBI fingerprinted. It's a state mandate for anyone who is going to be working with kids. Girls on the Run also requires a background check from an organization called Unique Background. And then if you are going to be at an actual Philadelphia school district school and you're not an employee, you'll need to do a mandated reporter training that the school district requires as well. And again, there may be some other things that the schools may ask based on COVID guidelines. So stay tuned on that. All right. Additionally, we do ask that coaches achieve their CPR certification, and that can happen either through an organization like American Red Cross. This season, we're actually going to be able to provide that service ourselves. So you would go through an online CPR training module, and then one of our Girls on the Run staff members would be able to do the actual hands-on skills assessment with you. As Colleen had mentioned, we ask that you be committed to delivering the curriculum, both in person and virtually if necessary, and of course following the CDC guidelines or any other more specific site requirements. Okay, and Colleen's gonna wrap it up.
Thanks, Heather. So just to really reiterate broadly what we're hoping that you walk away with after this session today, the girls and our volunteer safety is our top priority. So we really want to meet the sites and coaches where you all are this season. And we know that every site isn't going to have the same type of season. We may have sites that are most comfortable entirely virtual, some that will do a hybrid, some that do the shortened season. And our most important thing is that we really want to be there for the girls. So whatever form the program takes this season, we are ready to go with it. The flexibility is built into the program this season. So like Heather said, Girls on the Run HQ has been working really hard to produce this virtual curriculum to really try to provide a quality program that won't be disrupted, to create some kind of continuity for the girls this season, because we know that really that's what they need since they've been going through a really difficult time for the past several months. And then finally, I just want to highlight that the mission and impact of the program haven't changed. So we're really lucky. Heather, along with one of our other coaches, participated in a pilot of the virtual curriculum. And I think she can attest to the fact, yes, it is different. Everything is different, you know, being virtual than being in person. But it does provide connection for the girls and a safe place for them to process their emotions. And so really what we're trying to do is replicate that in whatever format we need to do this season. So at this
Can I just
point,
say one more thing, Colleen? I'm sorry.
oh
Just
yeah,
to
that's fine.
kind of bounce off what you said about the virtual lessons. The Girls on the Run has been extremely thoughtful and careful and empirical in their development of the virtual lessons. And they've been able to do it in a really quick time frame, which has really been impressive to see. So yes, it's not the same as being able to sit around and eat snacks and chitty chat for the first 10 minutes of your time together, but the real core takeaways of each lesson are still present in the virtual lessons. So yes.
All right,
Great.
so I know we're going to turn things over for questions now, and right now we only have one answer in the queue, and I'm going to ask Heather to look at it. So while you think about your questions based on what you've just seen here, I'm actually just going to play a quick 2-minute video for those of you who have not been a coach before, or maybe it's been a long time since you've been a coach. I found a video that a Girls on the Run coach in a different council made just to give you a glimpse of what practice would normally be like. Granted, it does not account for what a practice would look like virtually, but I'm going to share that with you real quick here. Bear with me just a sec.
On the run is so much fun.
I love that. Just gives you a glimpse of how much fun the practice is. Sorry. All right, let's see. We didn't have very many questions today. That's great. So Jordan had asked about choosing a virtual platform. Heather said you can find what works best for you. Any other questions? I know we've got a few returners on the line here and a few new people. So, don't be afraid to ask just basic questions about being a coach too. We're happy to answer those if you're not familiar and you're undecided about coaching or hosting. Otherwise, if you don't have any questions and you want to hit the road, thank you so much for being here with us this evening. And you'll be receiving an email from me in the next day or two here with a link to the recording and the presentation shared here tonight, so you can go back and review that in further detail.
Yes, thank you everyone for taking time to join us tonight. And for those of you who are coaches that are not assigned a site or connected to a site, we are looking for non-school sites to host the program. So if you have any awesome ideas around potential sites, let us know that too.
Eileen just asked, is there an option to be with a site that is virtual only or serve as a sub when needed for virtual? That's a good question. I don't see why not. I mean, I don't know that unless we know at the beginning of the season for sure that the whole season is going to be virtual, but I think being able to serve as a sub for virtual would be great.
I also think if we do have a site like a private school that on their own says, well, we're going back to school, but we're not doing in-person after school programming, but we want to have all virtual, that would also be an option, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or that might happen with the public school as well.
Sure. I also just wanted to add, if anyone has any questions that they think of, like at 8:22 tonight, just email one of us and we're always happy to answer questions. And yeah, so Eileen, if you want to email me, we can talk more about it. But I super appreciate you potential new coaches hopping on. Thank you so much. Oh yes, thanks Erin. There's my email address.
I'm just giving them yours. They already have mine, and Colleen's inbox is pretty much full anyway. So. Yeah. Well, we'll keep hanging out here. I know a few people have dropped off. Again, there are no stupid questions. Or if you just want to chat, you can type it in, or you can ping me and ask me to unmute you. Thanks, Glenna.